finally here. 2021 training camp for the Cincinnati Bengals and the rest of the NFL, but also our big show, our Charity Fest show with a lot of special guests, a lot of things going on tonight. We're going to go a little long, hopefully not a marathon show, but we're going to go a little longer than usual because of the special guests and a lot of different things going on. I'm Anthony Cosenza, joined by my buddy John Sheeran. Big night tonight, my friend.
Big night, a lot of weeks, a lot of days, man hours planning this, mostly by the guy next to me, Anthony. It was his brainchild, and I was able to do some stuff with this, but this was kind of the coming together of this idea that we had for this, and it really all kind of came together in the past week or so. But I'm really glad that we're finally doing this right at the commencement of Bengals training camp, and it's finally here, and this is going to be one of the longer shows that we've had. Like we used to go long back, like the first year when I was on the show. We used to go like an hour and a half consistently, and then we kind of cut it down to an hour. But if we have to go more than an hour and a half, I have the vocal cords to do that. If you're up to it, Anthony.
I hope I'm up for it. And this should be, we're coming at you a little earlier than usual if you're watching the live feed. So hopefully you jump on, and there's kind of a longer time tonight that you'll be able to join us. In case you haven't heard, we've got Ken Anderson joining us in just about 25 minutes or so. So he'll be joining us. We're going to talk Ring of Honor. We're going to talk 2021 Bengals. We're going to talk about his foundation, the Ken Anderson Alliance. And then at 8:15 Eastern, we're going to have Ken Riley II join us as well to talk about his father's legacy, his father's induction into the Ring of Honor. So we're really excited. We haven't had him on the program yet, and we're very excited to have him on the program. We're going to talk some training camp. We've got all kinds of stuff, too, for you donors here, because this is about giving to charity. So what we decided to do, and John was kind enough to say this was my doing or whatever. John was a major help in this. But what we've done is we've identified the three players' charities, Anthony Munoz, the Munoz Foundation, the Ken Anderson Alliance, and the Ken Riley Foundation. Those are the charities we'll be helping out tonight by getting your donations. We've put the GoFundMe page there that's live. The donations are live, so you can submit those. We've got all kinds of stuff to give away. We're going to give it away a little bit at random, but we've got T. Higgins rookie cards. We've got Joe Burrow rookie cards. We've got all kinds of stuff for you guys here. I got one bum arm, so I can't showcase it properly. I guess right here. We've got all kinds of stuff. We've got Ken Anderson Alliance sunglasses, beer koozies or soft drink koozies, towels, all kinds of stuff. We've got Cincy Jungle shirts on the line. We've got OBI apparel that we're putting together for you. So donate. John, I'm going to put the link out there. You created the GoFundMe. You want to tell us a little bit more about it?
Absolutely. So, yes, there's a live GoFundMe labeled the 2021 OBI Bengals Podcast Charity Fest. It has all the information about the three charities, the organizations that we talked about. And just so you guys can just get a quick synopsis of what these foundations are about, the Anthony Munoz Foundation has a mission to impact the lives of Greater Cincinnati children mentally, physically, and spiritually through scholarship funds, character camps, and leadership programs. The Ken Riley Foundation was created to financially aid Central Florida students in their pursuit of advanced education. The foundation supports several programs and entities that directly improve the economic stability of children through education. And the Ken Anderson Alliance is also based in the Greater Cincinnati area. It's a nonprofit corporation with a mission to provide adults with disabilities opportunities to develop and sustain lifelong relationships, independence, and self-esteem while contributing to the larger community. 100% of our proceeds, of your guys' proceeds, will be donated equally to these three organizations, obviously in honor of the Ring of Honor, the first class of the Ring of Honor, We made a soft, unofficial goal of $2,021 in honor of the first year the Bengals win the Super Bowl. However much money that we raise, we appreciate it all. We appreciate you guys' support for coming out, supporting us, and supporting these foundations. If those charities, if their missions aren't enough to incentivize you, if Anthony's torn left arm in a cast is not enough to generate sympathy points, I was willing to put one more incentive out there for you. If we reach our goal of $2,021 by the end of this show, I will pick at random one of these little hot sauce tablets, shot bottle, whatever, and I will chug it. And if you guys don't believe me, the Scoville units for these hot sauces are 1 million. That's about what a Carolina Reaper and a Ghost Pepper are.
Whoa,
and I will do my best to chug it live on air and suffer for your entertainment. If that is not enough, please consider donating to support these three very fine foundations and to see me go red in the face in about 2 hours' time.
Well, there's no dunk tank that you can get John and I with. So maybe I guess that's the next best thing. But we're trying to incentivize this thing. This is money not at all to John and I, not at all to the show or anything. Every single red cent will go to these charities, and that's the point of this. We want to thank those Bengal players for what they've done, not only as football players to the Cincinnati Bengals, but also with the great work each of their charities are doing. So please, please, please donate. Again, we've got all kinds of giveaways. We've got Joe Burrow rookie cards, T. Higgins rookie cards. We've got Jamar Chase rookie cards, a couple of those. We've got Orange and Black Insider apparel, Cincy Jungle apparel, Ken Anderson Alliance swag as giveaways to random donors that we want to send out to you, and we will alert you if and when you do win something like that. But a lot of cool stuff to give away. We're just trying to do you guys a solid by donating, but also honor these charities and these players for everything that they're doing. So appreciate those who have already donated. I see the Orange Arrow, who I was just on his show. Great guy there. He just donated. A couple of others have donated. So please keep it coming. We want to reach the goal and divvy it out to those three charities. But before we get to Ken Anderson, before we get to Ken Riley the second, when we've got a lot to get to with them, obviously, John, you were present for the team's media luncheon at the kickoff of training camp. Training camp did kick off on Wednesday here with everybody available. There were, some other players reported earlier, but you were there. You spoke to Zach Taylor. You spoke to Duke Tobin. First of all, before we get to those clips and talk about those, were you there with Mike Brown as well? Were you at the table with Mike Brown?
You mean, was I eating at the table, or was
were you there at the round table questions with him?
Yeah. So there was like 2 or 3 tables that were combined, and there was one isolated table for Mike and Zach and Duke to sit at and answer questions. And there was like a set number of chairs for those tables, and there was like a mad rush for like all the official media members to take those chairs, and it essentially became musical chairs with like me, James Rapine, and I think Lindsey Patterson. We were all kind of like left out. We had to just stand up or like sit behind all the tables. So I was hovering over the shoulders of both Paul Daniel Jr. and Ben Baby as they were all professional and set up with their laptops and their computers and everything. So me and James, we kind of stood behind there and kind of did our work from the back row.
Well, the reason I ask is because Mike Brown just seemed to be on fire yesterday. He was just throwing out jokes and one-liners and stories, and at least from the videos that I could tell. And then Jay Morrison relayed a very interesting quote saying, basically, my kids are afraid of me, but my granddaughter is not. And that's what's got the Ring of Honor and all these things going forward. Some of these things that he was kind of hard to move forward with. Apparently Elizabeth Blackburn, his dear granddaughter, has his ear on these things.
I had the pleasure of talking to Elizabeth after it was all said and done. So the media luncheon, we talked to the personnel members, the coaches and whatnot. And then there's this big lunch with nice steak, mock turtle soup, which, all right, please excuse my ignorance, because I've heard the phrase mock turtle soup be associated with the Bengals. And I think specifically Mike Brown, but I didn't know it was like legitimate. I thought it was like a metaphor for something in terms of his frugality, but it was just, I guess, turtle soup, but not actually turtle soup. It tasted like a weird stepchild of Skyline because they serve it with like these crackers. So it was fine. I enjoyed it. I didn't even know what it was until I realized, oh, this is the mock turtle soup that's going on. So after the whole like luncheon type situation, I was like getting my stuff ready to leave, and Elizabeth Blackburn walks up to me and says, "Hey, I got to talk to my man John." And I don't know why this was the first initial reaction to this, but I was genuinely surprised. And I said, "Oh my God, you remember me?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, of course I do. We talked 3 months ago." But that was really cool. Because it would have been completely understandable if she, said, "Oh yes, of course, John. Yeah, we talked 3 months ago." But no, she recognized me and knew that I was going to be there, and we chatted for a couple minutes just about everything that's happened over the summer. Talked about the response to all of the campaigns that they've been pushing over the past few months, and it was really nice to get to catch up with her.
That's awesome. And that just coincides with the recent, poll and everything mentioning our website and our podcast. And I mean, they've got a pulse. These people have a pulse on what's going on with Bengals coverage. And she's on top of it. It's awesome. Before we talk a little bit more about this, I want to play the clip. These are some clips that John was able to get at the media luncheon here. So we'll talk about, this is a quote from Zach Taylor and then a quote that he grabbed also from Duke Tobin. We'll talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to play this right here for you.
Yes, because you can take the next step. You can then reference all the game clips that he experienced last year and continue to build off of that. So I think it is important in year two having the same guy. You've been through a lot of ups and downs together. You've installed the offense many times now at this point. So now he can speak more freely because he feels like he's got ownership in the system. It wasn't just being introduced to him last summer, getting a feel for it in live game reps. Now he's had a chance to go back, reflect on that, study it this whole offseason. He's got his own opinions, which is great. You want that from your starting quarterback. And so those have been really fun discussions just in the last couple of games as we've been meeting, the last couple of days as we've been meeting.
Well, it's 3 more than we had last year, so it's going to be a welcome, to actually have some tape to look at when you're making late waiver claims, or you're trying to build your practice squad or fill in your practice squad. And so I think 3 will be enough for us to make a complete evaluation. Normally the 4th preseason game was a game of everyone that's going to get cut, playing against everybody else's everyone that's going to get cut. And so it was nice to have that in the film bank, but ultimately I think 3 games will be fine from a personnel perspective to get a feel for what the guys are doing so we can make the moves that we need to make.
So I want to talk about this briefly. We're going to have our first special guest, Ken Anderson, joining us in just a minute here. But I want to talk about this real quick because these were questions you asked of Zach Taylor and of Duke Tobin specifically. The first one was about rapport with Joe Burrow in his second year with, the head coach quarterback tandem. And then, of course, the preseason and how that is set up this year in a unique way. So, John, just a little bit of additional insight that you could provide on those quotes and your thoughts on them and their responses. You're muted.
Yeah, of course. So Zach Taylor walks up, and of course, the first 3 minutes are just filled with Burrow content. How do you ease him back in? What is the protocol? What is the plan in terms of getting him to be feeling more pressure and getting used to those experiences without putting him at risk? But I was honestly curious about from his perspective because, when he was with the Rams for 2 years, he had Jared Goff for both those years, and Jared Goff took a big step forward in that offense, in the McVay offense. But ever since 2018, he's gone from Jared Goff to Andy Dalton, and then Andy Dalton to Joe Burrow, and then he had to deal with the Joe Burrow injury and had to have Brandon Allen start for a handful of games. But this is the first time that he is in the same offense. He's coaching the same offense with the same quarterback from the year prior. And I know that the injury has, put a wrench through some things this offseason, but for the most part, Burrow has done basically everything in terms of, being out there on the field, going through the install, and obviously being a part of the meetings and whatnot. And I was curious if that has made a notable impact in terms of like getting ahead of schedule, and if that is actually a difference compared to just, going from Dalton to Burrow and having a rookie quarterback last year and Burrow kind of picking it all up on the fly. So I think that is an underrated aspect in terms of having this offense kind of hit the ground running and being an explosive, above average unit that I think we all expect it to be. It's that continuity factor that, he hasn't had that experience since really he saw with McVay and Goff in 2017 and 2018. Obviously, both of those years were really successful for that offense. So I think in terms of just evaluating Zach Taylor in general, right? This is his 3rd year. This is like his team. I think he was asked that question too, if he feels like he has more ownership over the roster, because this is for the most part his guys on the roster, but also now like he has the same quarterback from the year before. You don't have to go through install just for the first season again. You have those shared experiences that he talked about to go back and reference to. I think that is an underrated aspect in terms of projecting what this offense is going forward?
Obviously, the key that a lot of people, a metric that people arbitrarily use is that 3-year metric of coach, quarterback together, that sort of thing. But I don't know that that's, we don't know if that's how long of a leash Zach Taylor's going to have at this point if struggles continue, but it sounds like they're on the same page about a lot of different things. It sounds like they are moving towards something, building something really great. They have the vernacular down and whatnot. And, so that's a good, it sounds like he's really positive and really confident about the direction there. And then, of course, Duke Tobin talking about preseason. I thought it was kind of an interesting remark at the end there with week 4 of the preseason, basically saying you're playing guys who are being cut. I thought that was just kind of a blunt statement that I didn't really expect to hear from him. I don't know about you, John, but that kind of struck me a little bit.
Right, and that's something that hasn't really been talked about that much or hasn't been addressed to, I think, coaches and players enough. First of all, the return of the preseason, they didn't even have it last year, so obviously that's a plus. Having 3 games is better than having none in terms of evaluating the bottom half of the roster. There's a reason why not a lot of undrafted or college free agents made rosters last year, because they just didn't have experience. They didn't have anything that they could reference to outside of just training camp practice. So now you're kind of returning to normalcy there, but you're losing that last game where it's, for the most part, bottom of the roster guys competing against other bottom of the roster guys. And it's those types of games that lead to the performances of Damian Willis, solidifying himself to be even a starter in week 1. There wasn't that story, at least for the Bengals last year. And now we can have a chance to see if something like that materializes this year. But I think from his stance, it's not that big of a difference going from 4 games to now 3 games. But I will be interested to see, does the second game become what that third game used to be? Is that the new dress rehearsal, and is the third game the new 4th preseason game? So I guess you're just losing one intermediate preseason game that used to be a week 1 or week 2 type setup, where it's the starters play maybe a drive or 2, and then it's mainly just other guys getting their feet wet.
Well, interesting remarks by both Zach Taylor and Duke Tobin from questions that you fielded. We're going to talk a little bit more about training camp and what's ahead, what the sights and sounds from basically the past couple of days, not only from the media luncheon, but the first full day of practice on Wednesday. We'll get to that in just a second. But as we noted, we have 2 very special guests tonight, and we are featuring them because not only were they inducted into the Bengals inaugural Ring of Honor, but we want to promote their great foundations and drive donations to their great causes. And so please, if you would, go to that GoFundMe link. We put in the live chats. We've pumped it out on cincyjungle.com, etc. And with that, we are very, very pleased to bring in the newest member of the Bengals inaugural Ring of Honor, Ken Anderson. Mr. Anderson, congratulations. How are you, sir?
I am doing great, and I'm looking forward to September 30th, to be in the inaugural class of the induction to the Bengals Ring of Honor. But I think, what's really going to be exciting is they're also honoring that night the 81 Super Bowl team. So I think we've got a lot of guys coming in from that team. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing a lot of those guys that aren't in Cincinnati and to kind of catch up on old times.
Well, we know you've been immensely busy, and we appreciate you carving out time for our show. You've been immensely kind to our show, and we were so excited that you were willing to come back on here. I guess one of the places I would want to start here, last time you joined us was, I believe, at the end of January. We were talking about the Freezer Bowl anniversary and all that kind of stuff. But at the time, we were kind of wishfully thinking about Rings of Honor, something by the team. Was there any kind of indication, maybe you were holding it a little close to the vest at the time, were they talking to you about this kind of coming to fruition here this year? Or was this kind of a surprise as the months kind of unfolded and they were approached you saying, hey, you're going to be part of this class, or you're going to be voted upon to be in this class?
No, it was a surprise to me. I didn't know it was in the works. And, I think a lot of it was due to Elizabeth Blackburn, who's starting to work with the Bengals. And, she's Mike Brown's granddaughter. And as I have told people that, and sometimes, you don't listen to your kids, but the grandkids have a soft spot for you. So maybe she played on that with Mike and got this whole thing done.
What was it like? Kind of, did you talk to like Ken Riley's son, Ken Riley II, about his induction? Was there any communication with that? Did you like get to know him before this whole process, or did you feel like you connected with him more during the last couple of weeks now?
Well, I haven't really talked to Kenny the second. I think the last time we were together, well, unfortunately, was at his father's funeral. But before that, the 50th anniversary of the Bengals a few years ago when they brought in the top 50 players, and Kenny and I were in the same weekend, and Kenny the second was with him then, and so we had a chance to talk to him about a lot of things.
Talking with Ken Anderson, the newest member of the Bengals inaugural Ring of Honor, alongside Paul Brown, Anthony Munoz, and Ken Riley. Speaking of Ken Riley, Ken, there's been a big push about, you and he getting your rightful spots, not only in the Ring of Honor, but in the Hall of Fame. But what does it mean to you to be enshrined in this team's Ring of Honor, along with those names and in the first class? There's kind of a little bit of a prestige with being in the first class.
Yeah, there is. But what I'm, I guess, most proud of is that sometimes in today's world, the Bengals don't get a lot of respect from the national media. But, I go back to the 60s and the 70s and the 80s when, we had a great tradition, a winning tradition, and we were as good as any football team in the National Football League, and had a lot of respect from not only our peers in the league, but, the media. So to be able to do this and go back and remember some of those players, I think is special. It's Anthony and it's Kenny and it's and I, and then of course Paul Brown. But go back, all of a sudden the memories come back of Isaac Curtis and Essex Johnson and Bob Johnson and Bob Trumpy and Mike Reed and Lamar Parrish and Tommy Casanova and the great players we had back in those days. And it's nice, and I want people to go back and remember those times and remember how good we were. I think if you look back at the record, unfortunately, we were in the same division of a dynasty in the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Just a little bit, yeah.
But we, by far, had the best winning percentage against the Steelers of any team in the league. We were about 50% against them, very close to it. And the next team was about 30%. So, unfortunately, we kind of ran into them, and we got beat by the Raiders in a playoff game in '75, and they were one of the top teams in the league. That was a 3-point game, and happened to get beat down in '73 in Miami, another year that the Dolphins happened to win a Super Bowl. So, we were good back in that era, and a few more people remember the '81 season and going to the Super Bowl, but there were a lot of great players back in the '60s and '70s.
Is there a teammate of yours from those teams in the '70s and even the '81 team that you say that you have a vote in the next Ring of Honor ballot? Is there someone that comes to mind that you think that should get more recognition and should maybe even be included on the ballot if they were included on the ballot?
Oh, Isaac Curtis, no doubt. Isaac Curtis is the best receiver in Bengals history. And his stats sometimes don't show that, but, he came into the league in 1973. And you look back in those eras, the quarterbacks are throwing about 20 times a game. You're not going to have great stats. We only played 14 games. But the difference that Isaac Curtis made, I always tell, his rookie year in '73, he was Jerry Rice before Jerry Rice. I mean, he came in and lit up the National Football League. And people forget that. And, he was a world-class sprinter. They wanted him to try out for the Olympic relay team. And, of course, he wanted to focus on football. But the difference is he was a football player that was fast, not a sprinter who tried to play football. And Isaac had great moves, great change of direction, great hands to go along with that great speed.
He's also a Southern California guy. I went to San Diego State, so I'm a little partial to him. Look, it's an interesting parallel, and it's going to kind of lead to my next question. By the way, we're joined by Ken Anderson, legendary Cincinnati Bengal, now member of the team's Ring of Honor. Super glad to have him back on the program. Look, I compiled some research, and really, if you compared Isaac Curtis's number to Drew Pearson, who just made it into the Hall of Fame, it's neck and neck, if not in favor of Isaac Curtis. And I guess where I want to go here, we've always asked you about the Hall of Fame and whatnot, but I guess what do you not only think that this induction into the Bengals Ring of Honor does, but also endeavors like what Bengal Jim did, the March to the Hall, to give Bengal players their proper recognition, like yourself, who are so deserving to be in Canton? What do you think this does to help heighten recognition and your rightful place in Canton?
I don't know. Hopefully it brings a little more notoriety to some of the players that we had back in that era. But to be honest with you, I don't know what the criteria is for the Hall of Fame. Is it world champions? Well, then we're always going to be, left behind. But there are people in the Hall of Fame that haven't won a world championship. I think most of the time the only position that's judged by that happens to be quarterbacks. It's not so much a big factor for other positions, but, I don't know. And, I tell people that, the Hall of Fame is great, but I'm already in a more exclusive club than the Hall of Fame, and that's the NFL Man of the Year. We only do one of those a year. And that not only, takes into account what you did on the field, but what you did off the field. And, I'm just, I'm so proud of my career in Cincinnati. I'm so proud of the teammates that I had, the success that we had. And, I just go to bed every night and just thankful I had the opportunity to play for the Bengals and, and Paul Brown and, Bill Johnson and Forrest Gregg and Sam Weich and, the teammates I had. It was a really great period of my life.
And I think from a fan's perspective, it's from a sense that, even if Ken Anderson isn't in the Hall of Fame, even if he isn't in there now, maybe he doesn't get in there for 5 years, at least now he is in the Hall of Fame from his own team. He's in the Bengals Ring of Honor, and that's been something that I think fans have wanted for as long as more players like yourself have wanted. But Ken, we are honoring your charity tonight. We are trying to get donations for the Ken Anderson Alliance, and this has been a busy month for you, not only from a professional football career, but also for your own foundation as well. You just launched Just Brew, the coffee shop, which is located right at the headquarters of the Ken Anderson Alliance in Silverton. So kind of talk about what really started with that and what was the goal and the mission for Just Brew?
Well, it started several months ago when we merged with another nonprofit, Melodic Connections. And we took over the building that they had in Silverton. And it had a lot of space to it. And, as I said, the mission of the Ken Anderson Alliance is to create live, work, and engage opportunities for adults with developmental disabilities. And so, they had a spot that was going to be perfect for a coffee shop. And, thanks to one of our board members, Terry Tomlinson, who kind of funded getting the coffee shop, remodeled, up and running. Gosh, we have a great girl that's training our employees, and we're employing 14 adults with disabilities. And, I think that's important because, number one, we're training them to do this job. It may lead to another job at somewhere else. Maybe they're coming in, they had a job, and after COVID, they lost that job, and they're coming in and working again. But, it's real jobs with real wages that lets them live as independently as possible. So, we were there for the grand opening, and the coffee is great. The service is great. The atmosphere is great. You can buy Ken Anderson jerseys in there. You can buy Ken Anderson T-shirts. We've got one young man with disabilities that is a great artist, and we're selling his artwork in there. So it's a part of the community. And, I had a meeting with our executive director this morning at 10 o'clock, and he just walked over from me and says, it's packed again. So the community loves it. And, you don't come back if the product's not good. And it's good coffee.
Well, it's awesome stuff. And we want to hear a little bit more about the charity as well, and your thoughts maybe on how the Bengals are looking today in 2021 as training camp opens. But I did have one quick question before we segue over there. There was a 16 Lots beer that was brewed. They came to you to brew a beer. Rumor has it that you instructed them to have it taste as close to Keystone as possible. Is that true? Because I know you're a big Keystone guy. Keystones with Kenny. Is that true?
No question. One of the owners, Dell, called me. I'm on a conference call with him, and saying we want to brew a beer for you and for the foundation, and we'll give you a percentage of the sales. It's going to be a nice little amount for our foundation. And I stopped him in his tracks, and I said, Dell, I really appreciate the gesture, but I really have a tough time going to microbreweries. I don't like IPAs. I don't like the heavier beers. Most of the beers leave an aftertaste. And he goes, no, I know you like Keystone Light. He said, we'll brew a beer like that. So one of the exciting things was we did kind of some tastings out there at the brewery. But when I was up there for the opening of Just Brew, his beer truck came in that had, of course, different taps. And we had a test batch for Kenny's Day Drinking Lager. And it is outstanding. So it's in the process. And if you go to our website, I'm sure there's pictures of the cans. It's going to be a collector can, if nothing else. And so I'm excited. And, the whole thing about it's a lower alcohol content. It's light. And, we're calling it Day Drinking Lager because you can drink it all day. Great tailgating beer. When you're watching a football game, that's the beer that you want to drink. So I'm really excited about that.
I love it. I remember last time you were on, you were talking about Keystones with Kenny. And I had to ask you about that. Before we move on a little bit to just some quick thoughts of yours on the current state of the Bengals, I was curious, with your inauguration in the Ring of Honor, did you hear from any kind of NFL contemporaries? I'm sure you heard from your teammates and whatnot about congratulating you, but maybe some of these other high-profile great players that you went head-to-head, toe-to-toe with, Dan Fouts, Joe Montana, any of those kinds of folks reach out to you and say, hey, Ken, congratulations, and or any kind of fun little anecdotes that came with the inauguration, the inaugural class and you being inducted in it?
No, not from anybody else, and I'm not sure that outside of Cincinnati that many people know about it. But in Keystones with Kenny, I've had Dan Fouts on, I've had Archie Manning on, a bunch of those old guys. But certainly a lot of response from my former teammates, congratulating me, and like I said, that night we'll all be honoring the '81 Super Bowl team. So, we'll have a chance to get together and tell some stories and share some beers, and hopefully by that time it'll be Keystones with Kenny that we're sharing, or excuse me, Kenny's Day Drinking Lager.
There you go. Well, I don't know if you've been keeping up with what's going on at Bengals training camp today. I know you've kind of got your pulse on the team and have been in contact with the club, obviously, and whatnot. But, last time we talked to you, the draft hadn't happened yet. There's been a lot of different moves in free agency by the team. We were all kind of cautiously optimistic at the beginning of the year. We were wondering what's going on with Joe Burrow. He is now close to 100%, he claims, at this point. The team loaded up on the offensive side of the ball with their top two picks. Didn't get the highest profile offensive lineman. So I guess what's your take on the pulse of the team right now? And what did you think about the team maybe not getting the top tier free agent in at offensive line and or in the first round?
Well, I think they feel very confident in what they have offensive line wise. Jonah Williams, didn't play his rookie year, was hurt again last year. If he can come back and live up to his potential, we've got a great left tackle. They signed some free agents last year that many of them happened to get hurt. So if they're healthy this year, I think they feel very confident with the new offensive line coach that they have is developing these guys and making them a little bit more sound. So I think internally they probably feel pretty good about the chances for the offensive line. And, if you give Joe a little time, what weapons do I have? And, of course, adding a receiver, number one, is going to help him out because, between him and T. Higgins, who had a really a breakout rookie year, and Tyler Boyd, Uzama, as a tight end, Joe Mixon as a running back, we've got some weapons. So I think if that offensive line can get solidified, give us a little time, we're going to score some points.
Yeah, it's like he's got three guys at Curtis's out there now. Burrow was asked today in his first in-person press conference about does he plan on like maybe changing or adapting his playing style to kind of reacclimate himself from the injury? And he basically shut it down, saying, I'm just going to play the way I play. Like, that's the only way I know how. Football to me is when you get hit. It's kind of like it's the overall experience with it. Is that something that like fans and analysts maybe don't quite understand? Like, it's hard to really change your playing style, especially as a quarterback after you come back from a long injury? Or is it something that maybe he is more capable of doing because he's so young in his career?
No, I think, what we saw in Joe Burrow last year before he got hurt, he's the real deal. He's got what it takes. We don't need him to change the way that he plays. I think the biggest hurdle for him is overcoming the confidence, that your knee is going to hold up. And that's just from practicing every day. It's from playing in a few preseason games and developing that confidence. But I have no doubt that opening day, he's going to be ready to go.
Talking with Ken Anderson, member of the Bengals inaugural Ring of Honor class, one of the best Bengals of all time. Happy to have him with us. Before we hear a little bit more about your foundation, Ken, you got a quick record prediction for the Bengals this year? I always like to ask that. I don't know why.
Well, I hate to go to talk about records. I think what we want to see is improvement. And, that'll show up in wins and losses. And I don't want to put a number of it on it. But, I think that they're going to be substantially better this year. And, unfortunately, we're still in a pretty tough division. Baltimore is very good. Cleveland is a very good football team. You never count the Pittsburgh Steelers out. I don't care how old Ben Roethlisberger is. So it's going to be a tough division. But I think you'll be able to tell by the play on the field whether we're going in the right direction. And I got a lot of confidence in Zach Taylor, and his coaching staff. I think they're doing the right things. I think the players have bought into what he's saying and his vision for this team. And so I think it's going to show up on the field. I don't know how many wins that's going to be, but I think it's going to be obvious that they're a better football team.
Well, we talked about the coffee shop that you just opened up through the Ken Anderson Alliance Foundation, and your organization is doing some really awesome things. I guess I just wanted to give you another chance to talk a little bit more, maybe what's ahead with the foundation. We're garnering some donations. They're starting to come in here for the evening, and we want to make sure that we get a sizable amount and get those to you to make an impact. But if there's anything else you wanted to add about the foundation beyond the new coffee shop that you opened, we'd love to hear it.
Well, I think one of the exciting things is we've got a music studio in the back of our building, and we're doing adult daycare services with music therapy. And, my wife, Christy, and I had a chance to go up there one day, and they had about 4 or 5 adults that were on the severe end of autism or Down syndrome. And they're there in wheelchairs and microphones. And we have 3 on staff that are playing keyboard, piano, drums, and these kids, getting involved with it, with tambourines, singing the words to the song. I think the first song happened to be Sweet Caroline that we heard them in. But to see the pure joy on their faces making music, that was really exciting. We went back up the next day, and they had one of our adults with a guitar, and I looked, and they had colors where the chords are on the neck of the guitar, and another adult at a keyboard with colors on the keys, and there's music in front of them with colors, and of course the keys and the chords and the guitar matched up with the colors, teaching them to play, by colors. And so, I think when we're up and running and fully staffed, we'll have about 80 adults a week that we're servicing with daycare services. We have engage opportunities, over 20 opportunities a month, where our adults go out in small groups in the community, whether it's to a Reds game, whether it's out to dinner, whether it's to play putt-putt, whether it's to go to another nonprofit and volunteer. But we're servicing about 230 adults a month in that program. We have another work program up, our O2 Urban Farms, where we're growing lettuce indoors under lights, and we employ people there. But our main focus is that we want to build a community that's a safe environment for our adults to live in. And we have property in Springfield Township. We are getting ready for groundbreaking. It's all designed, it's all laid out. So we've got a capital campaign that will start sometime this fall. But in June of 23, we're going to open up an apartment building and a community center, then phase 2 with some cottages. But when it's done, we'll house 170 adults on about 23 acres.
That's amazing. It's amazing stuff. When you and I were in contact, Mr. Anderson, I kind of said I had, your organization kind of holds near and dear to my heart because of some people I am close to that have some developmental disabilities. And so even though they are not in the greater Cincinnati area, I think what you're doing is amazing. And as we teased at the beginning, we've got, for those who are donating, we've got all kinds of Ken Anderson Alliance swag, some sunglasses, when that 16 lots beer comes out, some koozies, some stuff to give away to you for donating, among many other items. So we're giving those out. John, I've got one more surprise for Mr. Anderson before we get him out of here. I don't know if you have anything else you want to ask him before I get to that, though.
But just so Mr. Anderson can hear it from us and also from our viewers, I just want to give shout outs to the people who have donated thus far. And again, 100% of these proceeds are going to Mr. Anderson's foundation, along with the Ken Riley Foundation and the Anthony Munoz Foundation. We got $10 from Mr. Frank Rudolph. Thank you, Frank. We have $25 from Satyam Sarma and Brady Nance, who's a good friend on Twitter. $50 from Jason Von Stein, longtime listener, Derek Davis as well, and Clifton D. Davis. And a $100 donation from Isaac Nearing. Thank you guys so much for kickstarting the donations. And Ken, there's support out here we got listeners from all over the world from what it seems like. So there's outpour of support for your foundation as well as Ken and Anthony's foundation. And I think what you're doing, I think Anthony said it best. It's something great. It's something that not a lot of people really know about. And thank you so much for bringing light to the situation and doing your best to make it better.
Well, thank you so much. And there's no donation too small. And, every dollar adds up. And, whether it's just, adding one service that we can provide for an adult with developmental disabilities, it's all worth the time and effort. And, I'm just so proud of where the organization has come from. When my wife, Christy, and I started, I think it was 2014 as the Ken Anderson Foundation, we were the kind of the crew that spearheaded it, and she worked harder than I do at it. But it's a source of pleasure and and pride to see where we've come in the short period of time.
Well, it's a great cause, and like I said, one that's near and dear to our hearts. And we can't thank you enough for being so kind to this program. We will continue to support your foundation. Open invitation anytime you want to come on. We don't want to over inundate you with invitations, but you've been incredibly kind to this show, and we can't thank you enough. I did want to show you this real quick. I don't know if you'll be able to see it too well, but I am in the midst of redoing a man cave, a little space of my own, and one of the things that's in there is the jersey I have purchased, your signed one from the foundation. That'll be a centerpiece in my new man cave. So thought you'd get a kick out of that, but want to support your foundation how we can. Hopefully we make a sizable impact, not only tonight, but going forward and supporting your charity. Thanks so much for coming on, Mr. Anderson. Congratulations on making the Ring of Honor. We know Canton's next for you.
Well, thank you so much. And you guys, you know how to get a hold of me. So whenever you need me, as the season starts, just give me a buzz. But, and for people that want to find out more about what we are, if they would like to have a Ken Anderson jersey, we've got some great T-shirts. If Isaac Curtis and I, it just says Legends on them. We've got pullovers. We've got signed footballs. We've got signed helmets. For all your shopping needs, go to KenAndersonAlliance.org. We can take care of you. And it'll also tell you, what our foundation's about and what our vision is.
Yeah, I bought that shirt, by the way, as well, the Legends one. Unfortunately, I've got an arm injury, so it's a little more snugger fit, so I couldn't get it over the arm cast right now. Otherwise, I'd be wearing it right now. But thank you so much for coming on. I think I'm going to be making my way out to Cincinnati for a game or two this year. So And week 4, I know is a big one for you and for a lot of fans. That might be there for me to go out there, maybe week 1, but hopefully I see you out there. But thank you so much, Mr. Anderson. Appreciate your time.
Well, if you're out there for week 1, we're going to be in town and at the banks across from the Holy Grail. The street's closed down. We'll have a foundation tent where we're selling different items, creating awareness for our foundation. And I will be there on September 12th for opening day.
Awesome. Well, if I make it out there, if I end up doing that, I'll keep my eyes out for you and give you a hearty handshake. Thanks for everything that you do in the community. Well deserving of that NFL Man of the Year award that you won. And we'll be talking to you soon. Congratulations once again on the Ring of Honor.
Well, thank you. When the Bengals start off 4-0, 5-0, have me on again because we predicted it here.
That's right. That's right.
You heard it here first.
That's right.
There we go.
Take care, Ken.
All right. Thank you much, guys.
All right. Ken Anderson, one of, if not our favorite guests that we've had on this show, a multiple-time guy. He gave us a lot of time. We were talking about some training camp stuff. He showed up a little earlier than usual, and I said, you know what, let's get him on. So I appreciate that. And we appreciate the donations. I know he appreciates the donations that have come in so far. We are still a ways away from our goal of $2,021, but we are getting some nice donations in. We've got a lot of different stuff to give away to folks here. Like I mentioned, we've got a lot of really cool, if you like trading cards, that's kind of a hot ticket item these days. It's hard to get your hands on trading cards right now. We've got Joe Burrow rookie cards in Bengals uniform, in the Ohio State uniform, all kinds of different stuff. We'll group, stuff like that. Joe Burrow right there. We've got T. Higgins rookie cards. We're giving away stuff. We've got the Ken Anderson swag that we told you about, the koozies, the towels. We've got some Cincy Jungle shirts, some Orange and Black Insider stuff. So we want your donations to not only count, but we want to thank you. And even if it's in a little way with some of this stuff, this may not be totally appealing to all of you in terms of stuff you are dreaming of, but we want to give you a little thank you gift for your donations. So please, please, please keep the generosity up. And John, do you know who Ken Anderson was brought to us by?
I do not know.
You don't?
I don't. Could you tell me?
I think it's going to be Symbol. SIMBULL.app/OBI. That is Symbol. That's who Ken Anderson is brought to us by. They are the stock market for sports. We've partnered with them since before the draft, and it's been a great partnership. We're working on continuing that moving forward here, but it is a long-term, I don't want to call it sports betting. It's a long-term play in terms of an investment opportunity in the sports betting fantasy football realm. Right, John?
Exactly. It is investment for sports fans. Like I feel like a lot of people now, they're into cryptocurrency, and everyone has been into the stock market since it's been invented. But honestly, no one really knows what goes on with that. It's a fugazi, it's a fugazi, it's fairy dust. It doesn't exist. It's not on the periodic elemental chart. This stuff is. It's basically, if this team does good, its stock value price typically goes up. And if you think that Team X is going to succeed over the next 2 to 3 years, that you invest in that team and you see your dividends increase. Therefore, it is the stock market for sports. It really is that simple. And with the promo code OBI, you get a $10 deposit bonus when you sign up, and you can invest in the Sim Bengals, which is still around the $50 price mark if you think that they're going to succeed in the near future, and you just play the long term. It's the stock market for sports. It's sports investing, and it's a lot of fun when you get into it.
Absolutely, and thank you to Symbol for partnering with us. Go get that $10 deposit bonus, as John mentioned, using that promo code OBI. We're going to continue on with a little more training camp talk. We've got about 20 minutes until Ken Riley II is set to join us. We're excited to speak with him about his father's induction. By the way, we had also reached out to Anthony Munoz's camp. We've been in touch with him up to right before the show. He was interested in coming on the show. He's going to try to come on the show. Unfortunately, he was out of town this week. Just got back in, I guess, late last night. So I don't think he's going to make it tonight. However, we may have another opportunity, whether it's a message from him or another standalone podcast interview with him. He and his associates with the Munoz Foundation really like the idea of what we're trying to do in terms of this charity fest and whatnot. So, he may join us tonight. It's looking like it may be another time, maybe even next week. We'll see. But we are working on getting him as well. So it was flattering that he was interested in coming on the program too. So hopefully we can make that happen and hit the trifecta, John. Hit the trifecta. By the way, I like that Italian accent you worked there with that symbol plug there. That was nice.
It was not supposed to be Italian. It was supposed to be Matthew McConaughey from The Wolf of Wall Street.
That's right.
But I mean, no one can do the McConaughey. That's a really hard impersonation, and I have 50% Italian blood in me, so I think that's just how it came out.
Well, you and I we're the Italian guys. I like it.
Exactly.
Well, we were talking before we were graced by the presence of Ken Anderson on the show. We were talking a little bit about some of these quotes that you grabbed from Zach Taylor and from Duke Tobin. So good stuff there, John. Now some sights and sounds from camp here. I guess let's start with the interviews that preceded camp, and then we can talk about some of the things that we saw at practice. Let's start Joe Burrow there with his golden smile that he has now, took the stage, proclaimed that his knee was basically very, very close to 100%, did wear the knee brace at practice, which I think we all predicted. But, he's not only proclaiming himself to be 100%, but one of the interesting tidbits I thought also was no more social media for Joe Burrow. He has shut off all that stuff and is focusing on football, his teammates, or so he claims.
Yeah, so he didn't delete his Twitter and his Instagram, I don't believe. I think he just stopped using them because I think he tweeted last in July in support of college athletes and NIL. But I mean, Burrow barely tweeted anyways, so I feel like he never really used it in general. But I think that just kind of speaks to just how locked in that he is. Something that Mike Brown was asked about at the media luncheon was what is Burrow's mentality? What does it speak to you? Does it remind you of anyone? And he literally compared him to Drew Brees and Tom Brady in that regard, and just how locked in that he is and how focused he is. And I think Mike Brown's not the first person to describe Burrow like that, but this process has been something new to him, right? He has dealt with adversity before in terms of just becoming a starter in college and then becoming the Golden Boy Heisman Trophy winner and the first overall pick, but recovering from injury and coming back like this, it's something that not a lot of athletes ever have to go through, especially at such a young age. So if there was anyone who could do that and lock in and block out any and all the noise, and there certainly was a lot of negative noise surrounding if the Bengals are going to support him, if the offensive line's good enough, and if he's going to miss games, he was the guy to block that out. And I think he's done the very best he possibly could have. And the Bengals training staff, in terms of recovering from injuries, Nick Cosgrave's staff, they do a great job of getting these guys back, especially not only Joe Burrow, but Trey Hopkins as well. And we can talk about him in a minute. But Burrow himself just was locked in, and I don't think he could have recovered from this injury any faster if he even wanted to. Hopefully he never has to do it again, but we know that he has the mentality to do these things that some people consider impossible.
On Monday, I was joined by Strawberry Ice, a.k.a. Jeff Trenopole, great guy. He has his great show, Cincinnati Sports with Strawberry Ice. I think he's roaming around in the live chats as well. But, I kind of mentioned to him that the one thing that I think is resonating among many other things with Joe Burrow, leadership, et cetera, these players, his teammates, have an eye on how he is attacking this rehab process and how aggressive he has been in terms of making sure that he's on track to start week one, basically no matter what, being smart about it. But, I thought that is something that maybe resonates with teammates in terms of how he is attacking things. And I would think that rubs off on guys.
There was two things with that stood out to me today. Trey Hopkins spoke to the media after Joe Burrow, and he was asked about the recovery process with Burrow, and he said something along the lines of Burrow doesn't want to show weakness. He'll never show signs of defeat, and he'll make you want to recover as fast as he's recovering. So he builds that mentality and I guess that culture of I'm doing this, I'm suffering with it, but he's doing it too. And if he's attacking it like this, then by God, I'm going to do that as well. And he also talked about, him being out there for OTAs. That was somewhat of a surprise initially when we first saw him participating during May and June. And he said there was a decision to either go out there and participate, be on the field and go through the reps with the receivers, or instead of doing that, do rehab. And he decided to do the high risk, high reward of doing the on-field work and then making up the rehab work down the road because he knew he was going to have time to do that. I think that also just speaks to, okay, this guy is doing everything he possibly can to get mentally right, to get physically right for training camp, for the preseason, and for the regular season. And he's even sacrificing some rehab time, but he's doing it in a way that he knows he can manage down the road. So again, like it's not only just like the mentality that he has and just the presence that he has, but it's the actions too. And for someone who's just 24 years old with all this pressure on his shoulders, I don't think there's a person, employee, player, janitor in that building that doesn't buy into what he's doing.
Before we move on a little bit to some Sam Hubbard talk and some other topics, acquisitions and whatnot, some new guys that were set to potentially hit the field with the team. I just saw this come across our Twitter timeline here. This is a tweet from Dalton, the mastermind behind our new show logo, saying Ken Anderson is talking about Isaac Curtis on the Bengals, on Bengals OBI with Anthony and John. Check out this graphic he made. This thing is killer. I mean, that thing is just killer. With all the 85s there, Isaac Curtis in the throwbacks, you got Chad, and then of course Higgins there. That I don't know. That's just a really cool image there. I'm gonna have to maybe give him some money to be able to use that as a wallpaper or something. That's a really, really cool graphic that you came up with. I wanted to share that with you in case you didn't see it.
No, that's sick. Dalton, shout out to him for the work that he does, mostly just very charitable himself and just putting out these graphics to us. But man, the 85, man. Where was Tyler Eifert on there?
I know. We didn't get to talk about this because it happened. Strangely enough, it happened like on a Sunday, or at least it was announced on a Sunday. Usually these are the things that are announced on like a Monday or Tuesday, but Sam Hubbard inks a new contract extension, essentially 4 years, $40 million is $10 million average annual value on the contract. Seems to be working out in the team's favor a little bit after year one. But John, I think a lot of people say initially $10 million a year for a guy who is an edge player who's very good against the run, but doesn't really get after the quarterback all that often, had some injuries last year. But as I took a step back, I think just basically market value where that position is at right now, and a guy that you deem as your maybe 2A, 2B edge player on your team, I think it's a fair market value a little bit for a guy like that personally. It may be overpriced for some people's taste, but that's just kind of where the market is at. And I think if you look next spring, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball in front of me, but I think if he was to go to free agency next spring and the way that frenzy goes in March, you would be looking at a little bit of a different contract scenario, in my opinion.
So the contracts that most accurately align with him from a monetary standpoint, Romeo Okwara, who inked his deal with the Lions this offseason, Shaq Lawson, who was traded to the Texans, but he signed originally a deal with the Dolphins, Carl Nassib with the Las Vegas Raiders, and even Emmanuel Ogbah with the Miami Dolphins. I think we could all agree that Hubbard is in that tier of pass rusher where he's not, like you said, a dominant option. He can't be counted on for like double-digit sacks per year, but just in terms of solid play, being a decent run defender, like that is the market for that type of pass rusher, and that is exactly where Sam Hubbard got paid. I think there was a question of, are they going to slightly maybe go above that, maybe in the $12 and $13 million range, but I think they settled right where he probably should have gotten paid. And honestly, just thinking about it, he was coming off a year where he missed a month with an arm injury, and he didn't really play that well before the injury, and it took him a while to kind of get reacclimated afterwards. But he only had like a handful of good games last season. He only finished with 2.5 sacks. So he was coming off of what could end up being like maybe the worst year of his career. And that's when he got paid. I feel like had he had a full 17-game season this year and everything that came with that, I think he could have gotten a little bit more money or a little bit more change had he entered free agency and in the ensuing offseason, kind of like what Carl Lawson ended up doing this past year. So I definitely think that even though Sam Hubbard might never be more of a pass rusher than maybe say like what Michael Johnson was, I think that's still a player that you wouldn't mind keeping around for the long term because, like you said, it's an affordable deal that's right in the range of the quality of player that he is. And I think also just kind of throwing a curveball out there, but there's a lot of talk with Aaron Rodgers this week and about how he came back to the Packers. And one of the reasons why he did the whole thing this offseason was he felt like the Packers organization didn't do a good job of retaining some veterans that kind of built the locker room in the right way and kind of got rid of some leaders because they were too frugal. I feel like Sam Hubbard kind of fits the line of what those players are from the Bengals sense. And obviously Hubbard and Burrow have a great relationship. I definitely don't think that Burrow minds that Hubbard's going to be on the defense for another 4 to 5 years now. So I think these are moves, even looking at with the money aside, that is just an overall positive from the team's perspective, because Hubbard is probably going to be a captain this year. He's a young leader on that defense, and it's not going to break the bank. So overall, but solid move that you can't really complain about.
Exactly. And I agree with the Michael Johnson parallel in terms of kind of what they do and what they do best. I also would go back a little further and mention Robert Gathers' name. It's kind of a very similar thing there. Robert Gathers was a guy that was very effective against the run, had the 1 or 2 explosive sack number years, but really was just kind of a guy who would set the edge, particularly in the run game, and he was valued for that. And a lot of people would go, well, where's they didn't see the forest for the trees, or whatever that statement is. They didn't see the whole picture there. And so, and this is the thing, John. Hubbard and Jesse Bates were undoubtedly guys that the Bengals have targeted to try and re-sign this spring. They always target a couple of guys or a guy before they are set to hit free agency and try and get the deal done in training camp. They got Hubbard done. I'm sure they're working on Bates. That one's going to be a little more difficult because of the price factor there. But kudos to them getting Sam Hubbard done. How confident are you that Jesse Bates will now get done? I'm pretty confident that it will. They seem to just kind of get these things going. I mean, Tyler Boyd signed one. Burfict signed a couple. I mean, they do this in the summer, but this one's going to be pricey, and it's at a position they don't normally like to pay a ton of money to or draft all that high.
Well, I think I didn't expect it. I do expect it to happen. I have total confidence that it will eventually happen. But I think people got confused with, like, okay, if Jesse Bates is a better player and he's the quote unquote a higher priority, then why didn't his extension come first? The simple answer is because it's a little bit more complicated and it's going to take a little bit more time than Hubbard, because it's just a more expensive contract. It's going to be a contract that in all likelihood is going to reset the market for the safety position. Like Justin Simmons this offseason was the first safety to break the $15 million threshold. And in all likelihood, Jesse Bates is going to get exactly that number, maybe slightly even bigger. And they did this with A.J. Green 6 years ago. Like, A.J. Green was one of the first receivers to get a $15 million deal at the receiver position, the same offseason that Des Bryant got it, that Demaryius Thomas got it. But Green came later than all those guys. And if you remember, A.J. Green's extension came, I believe, 24 hours before week 1 of the 2015 season. They were playing in Oakland. So, like, A.J. Green wasn't even in the city of Cincinnati when that deal became official. So this could take a couple of days into training camp. It could take a couple of weeks. It could be right when Geno Atkins and Carlos Dunlap signed their extensions back in 2018. I believe that was late August, or it could take all the way into September, which is exactly what happened with Joe Mixon last year. The point is, it's going to get done because they know that they can't afford to get rid of a guy like Jesse Bates. And also, you got to read between the lines here. Sam Hubbard wasn't signed for long term this offseason or this spring. And he was still with all the festivities, with bringing out the jerseys and all the hype and the propaganda with all that. Jesse Bates was in those same promotions too. His jersey was featured as one of the 3 mannequins when they revealed the jerseys. You can't even buy Jesse Bates's jersey right now. They realized that there was demand for that jersey, so they put in so many orders in the spring just so people can be able to buy him in the fall. There is a clear directive and incentive to bring back Jesse Bates for the long term, not only because of the talented player that he is, but because of just how important he is with this organization, how popular he is with the fan base. They know that they have a deal that they can get done with him. There's no reason why it shouldn't. And for that reason, there's no reason to expect for him not to get signed by the time September 13th comes around.
Agreed. We're going to get to our second special guest in just a minute here. Before we do, John, I just want to quickly go over the offensive line and wide receiver additions that the Bengals have made in the past couple of days here. The Gaillard from Arizona, they got him off of waivers. They've flirted with Austin Ryder, who was a center from Kansas City. I think he left town without a deal, but is looking at, they're going to keep tabs on that, I think. And then, of course, They signed Reese Horn, the wide receiver. So pretty interesting. They're loading back up on offense at some of those positions, particularly with the injury to Wyatt Hubbard before his season's over, before it even began.
Yeah, so right now the Bengals have 88 players on their roster. So before the additions of Gaillard and Gunnar Vogel, the offense tackle, and Reese Horn, the wide receiver, they were at 85. So I don't think that these additions specifically have a lot of implications about position group battles or major shakeups to what the final roster is going to be. I think it's just them taking advantage of the roster space that they had. But you mentioned the defensive line. Wyatt Hubbard is out for the year with the torn pectoral. Larry Ogunjobi is currently on the physically unable to perform list, but that's only a day-to-day injury. So there is reason to believe that they could be interested in another defensive lineman just to get some more reps in there. But I think overall, Gaillard and Horn and Vogel are going to be nothing more than like third-string players who will fill out the bottom of the roster. They'll get opportunities in the preseason and whatnot, but I don't foresee those guys necessarily really doing anything of substantial impact unless they really blow people away. Like Gaillard, in my opinion, was a decent college player. He was a teammate of Trey Hill's back in Georgia. He was the center when Trey Hill was right guard as a true freshman. I think he has talent to make an NFL roster. It's just a matter of, is he going to get enough opportunities to get in front of Billy Price for that? If Trey Hopkins is fully healthy by the time August and September rolls around, then there's no real need for Billy Price to be established as a starter or anything. So there is a potential path for Gaillard to fill in there, but again, it's all about opportunities. And now these guys are actually going to get some opportunities unlike last year, but still it's hard to see these signings making much of an impact.
Gaillard started 2 games for the Cardinals last year, got a sub 50 Pro Football Focus grade, so a little bit of yikes there. And Ryder is, by accounts I have seen and heard, he's a little bit suspect in the run blocking aspect, a little bit better in the pass pro, but obviously Kansas City wanted to overhaul their offensive line and has done so in a major way this year. So he was not part of their plans going forward. We're going to talk a little bit more training camp, including a positional preview in just a little bit. But as we teased at the beginning of the show, we have a couple of huge guests to help us not only kick off the 2021 training camp with the Cincinnati Bengals, but also to celebrate the Ring of Honor. We are honoring these players and those inducted into the Bengals inaugural Ring of Honor by highlighting the charities from those respective players and their families. So we are very, very pleased to be joined right now by Ken Riley II. Mr. Riley, how you doing? Congratulations to you and your family on your father's induction to the Bengals Ring of Honor.
Thanks so much, and thanks for having me on the show. It's definitely a great honor for him, and we're excited for him to have this opportunity. Like I said, it's kind of, bittersweet from the standpoint that he's not actually here to witness it, but I know that he's smiling down from above, and like I said, it's a great honor.
Well, thanks for making the time to come on our program. I know you've been a very busy guy, and we could not be more excited for you and your family that your father was inducted into the Ring of Honor. John and I, you can go back a few episodes. We've been touting the put the Kens in, not only the Ring of Honor, but also put them into Canton. So I guess I kind of want to start in that realm a little bit. When you got word officially from the team that your father was inducted in the inaugural class, what was I assume elation and all kinds of different emotions were part of the process for all of you when you got that news?
Yes, of course. Definitely excited and just proud. He spent his entire 15-year career with Cincinnati. So Cincinnati was second home. I was actually born in Cincinnati. So never really lived there because we lived in Florida, but it always was a second home. And every time we got an opportunity to go back, we really enjoyed it. And he could always feel the love from the fans. And like I said, it was definitely a great honor to get that call from Elizabeth and Mr. Mike Brown.
The Hall of Fame is one beast, I guess. It's one thing, but the Ring of Honor was another thing. And it was always a battle, I guess, for not only former players, but fans to really get through to the Brown family to make it a reality. Was the Ring of Honor, was the idea of that, was that ever something that that you, your family, or even your father even contemplated in his retirement? Did you ever think it was going to be a reality? Was it that big of a surprise when they finally announced it this year?
Well, it was a great surprise. My father and I, we talked about it a couple times because you would always see other teams, honoring their past greats, and they have the ring of honor and retired jerseys. So we definitely would notice it. And so for the Bengals to finally have their ring of honor, it was definitely exciting and a great surprise. And like I said, it's just unfortunate that he's not here to see it, but definitely happy for Anthony Munoz, Ken Anderson, and Coach Brown. Those are legends. I said, like, it's like the Mount Rushmore of Cincinnati, and look forward to seeing some of the other future greats, the Isaac Curtises, Reggie Williams, Lamar Parrish. I can go on and on because, like I said, those guys that growing up were my I really enjoy watching them play, and there's such a great history that, unfortunately, being a smaller market, a lot of people don't know that great history. But now we get to showcase it. So definitely looking forward to also some of the future guys going in too as well.
Talking with Ken Riley, the second son of Ken Riley, who was just enshrined in the Bengals inaugural class of their Ring of Honor. So happy to have him with us, talking not only about his father, their family, and of course the foundation that they're running. We're going to hear more about that in a second. Ken, I wanted to bring this up, and hopefully you can see my screen here. This was an article that came up on my Twitter feed of late, and this was by Clark Judge, who was with CBS Sports for a long time, and now he's with Fan Nation. But he writes basically what effect will the Bengals Ring of Honor? There's kind of some back and forth on it, but at the end here, he notes that this is something that will potentially help your father get his very deserving Canton bid. He's tied fifth all time in NFL history with interceptions, and he talks not only about Munoz and Ken Anderson, but about your father specifically and how he is deserving, and hopefully this will now be an impetus to get him into Canton. Has your family kind of echoed that sentiment in terms of what the Ring of Honor means for further recognition that your father deserves?
Of course, I saw that article as well. You just never know. Unfortunately, it's out of our control. It's always out of his control at that point. I know that he has a lot of support, not only from the Cincinnati fans, but others, even from his peers, former peers. Mel Blunt, great guy. He actually had some great words to say about my father, James Lawton. And the list goes on and on. So that means a lot, just to have that respect from the peers and the love from Cincinnati and the Bengals. And at this point, you just never know. There's so many deserving other greats that, the list is long, and they only pick one a year. So definitely praying that eventually he will get in, and sooner than later. This year would be great. But we've been going through this for the last, ever since he retired, I've been pushing. And like I said, he was a little bit more laid back and very humble in his approach, because he always said that, his work speaks for himself. He was, he did it for 15 years, and he did it at a high level. And, I hear the argument about, he got 65. And there's so many different arguments, and everybody has their favorite. So I just hope that, the voters see and make the right decision, because, again, too, only one Bengal. And, we have some greats here, too. And it's unfortunate that they haven't been recognized. But hopefully that will change very soon.
Talking to Ken Riley II here, representing his father's foundation, the Ken Riley Foundation, based in Central Florida. Obviously, a lot of Bengals fans know Ken Riley, the football player, and the impact of his career. Just in the memories that you have of watching your father play, how would you describe the football player that he was, down to maybe like a sentence or two?
He was very a hard worker. He was a student of the game. And he was just consistent, like I said, to do it for 15 years at that high level. And not only that, he had to make a transition from quarterback to defensive back on the highest level. And back then they had about training camp was like 6 to 7 weeks. And he said the first camp, it's like 50, defensive backs, and just to go in and have that amount of pressure, not only just not never playing that position, but to have so many others and to make it through that. And like I said, just continue to do it for that period of time. I just have the most respect for him. And I could just never say enough about that.
One of the aspects that I think a lot of Bengals fans know about your father, but maybe not everybody knows, is that he made a major position switch from college to the pros as a late round pick, and then made this Hall of Fame caliber career for himself. What did when you kind of chatted with your dad about that, did he ever reflect on that position change? And was he kind of pushed into that? Did he feel that was necessary in order to make it into the NFL based on his draft status? I'm just kind of curious, a little bit of background on that, because I know about it, but I don't really know much of the backstory personally.
Yeah, well, like I said, he played for Florida A&M. Also went there, and Coach Gaither he's a legendary coach in his own right, and he was a pampered quarterback. He said it. He said, he was well taken care of as a quarterback. Never played it. But when he got the call and when he got to the camp, Coach Brown said, "You're moving to, defensive back." And at that point, his whole focus was just making the team. So he was one thing about him, he was very competitive. He might have been quiet off the field, but on the field, he was competitive. And he always, if you challenge him, he's going to, take that challenge. And he's going to take it personal. Like the Michael Jordan's, I know it's a meme, he takes it personal. He took a lot of things personal, especially when he was challenged. And that's one of the things I really admired about him, because he was challenged. He was always able to meet that challenge, and he did it for 15 years. And so he took it as a challenge, and he felt that because actually 4 of his former high school players made it to the NFL, and then as well as some of his college players, and his whole attitude was, if they can make it, I can make it. So it was always about, pushing himself and accepting challenges. So that was one of the things going into it. He was like, hey, I know I have the talent. I know I have the athletic skills. So if they can do it, I can do it. And, just all about proving them wrong. And he did it for 15 years.
I personally learned about that position change last year when we all kind of learned more about your father. And I learned about this from you last week, talking to you, that you also made a position change yourself when in your time as a football player. You started off as a wide receiver and then made the transition to your father's position at cornerback, playing for your father at Florida A&M. Do you have a specific memory that comes to mind playing for your dad at his and now your alma mater?
Yeah, I mean, it was I had some other opportunities to attend some other college, but my father played the same position, so I was like, I could get no better knowledge than playing for him. But it was definitely special to play for him. And one of the unique things is that he was a technician and a student of the game. So I could make a mistake and he can literally just right then and correct, hey, you false step, or they did this. So even though he was a head coach and we didn't spend a lot of time because he was more focused on the offense, but he had come down, and me and the other guy, playing on the other side, he was able to just, right then and there make that adjustment for it. So it was definitely, a great opportunity to play for him. And I learned a lot from him. And it continued on, we can be watching television and he'd be like, look at that. It's like he could just, make a correction and see what they're doing wrong immediately.
Talking with Ken Riley II, reminiscing about his father and Ken II's own great football career as well, celebrating Ken Riley's induction into the Bengals inaugural class of the Ring of Honor, kicking off 2021 Bengals training camp. Going to spend a few more minutes with him. I hope you're okay on time, Ken.
Fine.
Okay, good. I don't know, and this is maybe putting you on the spot a little bit, but did your dad ever tell you any interesting stories about Paul Brown? I always like to ask those associated with the Bengals, whether they're players or those very close to the club. I always like to hear about a Paul Brown story because he always seems to be a very enigmatic character, not only in NFL history, but in Bengals history. I don't know if there's a story that comes to mind a little bit that your father maybe talked about, whether it's a funny one or just something that just encapsulates who Paul Brown was, but I think we'd love to hear it if you've got one.
I have several, but he was great coach. But he always kept you on the edge. He was like pretty much fearful almost when he came in. Like I said, you better be on your P's and Q's. And one of the things, one quick story, I think I shared it the last time, was he had been in the league about 5 years, and I guess kind of got kind of comfortable. And it was like during training camp, and he walked over to him and said, hey, you see who I drafted? And he was like, yeah, I drafted him to replace you. And it was a first-round draft pick. And then at that time, he played the right corner, but during this camp, he started switching them right and the left side. So again, my father being the competitor he was like the next preseason game, he picked off 2 balls and 1 for an interception. And then, after, the next week in practice, Coach Paul Brown came to him and said, now that's what I'm talking about. Now get it back over on your side. So it was just like it was just one of those stories. And like I said, tell me your stories about guys like fumbled the ball and got cut at halftime. It's like many stories that, it's like he maybe been small in stature, but he was a big man. He was the man around, Cincinnati. He still is to the day. And but he had so much respect for him and learned a lot. And I think a lot of things that he learned from Coach Brown, he instilled in myself as well, just the hard work and being prepared and being a professional. So definitely a lot of stories. That's just one of many but that one there was like, wow, that's a lot of pressure, like, to be able to do that. But again, he just was able to accept those challenges and just keep moving.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
We had a question from our comments section from Jeff Trendenpool, Cincinnati Sports of Strawberry Ice. Apparently, your dad has a day named after him in your hometown in Florida. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was right after the 1981 Super Bowl. They had a Ken Riley Day, so the city kind of shut down. They had a big parade, and they gave him a key to the city. So it was definitely, I remember it. I was about 11 or 12. Great experience for them to do that. I remember riding in the convertible car, and so it was pretty cool.
I want to. This is another little tidbit of info I came across about your dad. I had done some research on him as well, and obviously remember him towards the latter days of playing in the NFL. But he was a Rhodes Scholar nominee, was he not?
Yes.
So I think that I would think that education was a big part of his life and what he valued. He probably instilled that in you as well, and I think that might be a nice segue to talk about what your foundation is doing as well.
Of course, that was one of his that he took the most pride in. After he left Green Bay coaching the secondary, he went back to his alma mater as a coach. And one of the things that, like I said, he took the most pride in is developing men. He really had a passion for the guys that he coached, and he wanted to develop them not only as athletes, but develop them as men. So, that's at the golf classic there. And not only did he love Cincinnati, he really, really loved where he was from, Bartow, Florida. And when he retired and moved back, he set up the Ken Riley Foundation to support, disadvantaged youth, so they still would have the opportunity to, provide scholarships, to go to scholarships. And he was big on trades too, because he also knew that everybody is not built for college, but there is skills that they can learn through that trade program. So he was big on giving those students the opportunity to further their education, whether it's a 4-year school or developing a trade or learning a trade. And through his foundation, that's one of the things that we try to provide for those underprivileged kids.
So the Ken Riley Foundation, it supports the East Side Positive Action Committee and the Union Academy High School Alumni Association, and both of those organizations promote financially struggling children and their opportunities in post-secondary school. From your point of view, how has the foundation kind of evolved from the original message to kind of where it is today? And can you kind of talk about maybe the growth, about what it's doing, not only in Barton, but in all of Central Florida?
Well, it was it's going on the 5th year now. The biggest fundraiser that we have is the Ken Riley Golf Classic. Last year was the 4th year. This year would be the 5th year. So we want to even make it even larger. It has continued to grow. Like I said, the NFL family is like a brotherhood. So we would have a lot of the former Bengal players and a lot of the former his contemporary players that he played with, and they will come down. And like I said, it's really been growing. We want to continue to grow it and make it something where we can, like I said, be proud of and do it in his honor. But that's just one of the things that we did. And like you had mentioned before, the EPAC Foundation was something that he took pride in as well. It was an entire day where he would bring in speakers and have games and provide food and games for the kids in the community. And he was just big on community. He was big on giving back, had a heart for kids. And like I said, making sure that kids may not have, that they have certain opportunities, give those opportunities and level the playing field. And because he really wanted that for the community that he lived in.
So to those listening, whether you're tuning in live or listening to the show after the fact, this is where your donations are going. We've already raised a few $100s so far this evening alone, and we want to keep that going. So obviously, not only from the live listeners, but as you listen to this show on your favorite streamer, go donate and help out this great cause and the others run by players and their families. Just such awesome work that you guys are doing. And I assume, Ken, I run a very small local nonprofit myself, and it actually is educational focused as well in what they're trying to do. But 2020 was a very difficult year for us to try and raise funds for our foundation. Hopefully it wasn't as difficult for you guys, but that's kind of part of why we're doing this, just for your own FYI, I guess. I know personally how difficult last year was, not only on people in general, but for those who run charities and nonprofits to do these in-person fundraisers. You weren't really able to do that last year, at least not as often. So it's our hope that we can make an impact for your family's foundation, your father's foundation here in the form of these donations we're receiving. So hopefully we can make an impact for you on that front. But I assume it was probably a bit difficult for you guys last year.
Yeah, I mean, it was different. It was the first year without my father, so that made it kind of hard, even harder. But just in general, things were the seating and making sure you had the social distance. So it was different. It was challenging, but we had a great turnout. Actually, we had more players than we've had so far at that golf tournament. This is actually one of the shirts. So
it's a cool shirt. I like that.
Yeah. So it's definitely. It was different, but we made it happen. And thanks to you guys, like I said, for having me on the show and, for providing the information giving me the ability to come out here and speak about the foundation. So I really appreciate that. And you guys are doing a great job, and, keep up the great work.
Appreciate that. And we all miss your father, but we are so happy that he was inducted into the Ring of Honor. We know that Canton is next, whether it's this year or maybe a little bit further down the road, but he is so deserving of being enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Before we get you out of here, if you can share, don't feel forced to, but what are your family's plans for the Week 4 celebration that the team is holding for the Ring of Honor? Is your whole family coming? Are you going to be there accepting the honor on behalf, or how's that working out for your family?
Yeah, well, yes, I'll definitely be there. I've never missed the opportunity to come back. I was always there with them. So whenever I get a chance, I'm always there. I'm probably try to make a couple games this year, actually. But my mother will be there along with my two sisters, my wife, and my two sons. They will be there. And I would probably me and my mother will be representing my father. We couldn't be more excited, and we just look forward to it. It's a lot of fans. I hope to meet you guys in person, because it's a lot of people that interact in the podcast and through the social media. But I really appreciate it, and my family appreciates the love. And like I said, every time we've come back to Cincinnati, there was so much love, and I continue to see it on social media now that it's just overwhelming. And like I said, I can't thank the fans enough. I can't thank you guys enough just for, honoring my father and always showing that support. Like I said, Cincinnati is the second home for us, always will be. and we are always, always with the Bengals and Cincinnati.
Well, we're 100% behind you, your family, and what you guys are doing with your foundation. We just want to help out. And I don't live in Cincinnati personally. I live in Southern California. I was telling my co-host and some others about that a little bit earlier, but I do plan on making it out to at least one game this year. So if I do, I would love to meet you, love to meet your family. I don't know if week 4 is in the cards for me specifically, but that's one on the table of discussion within my household. I don't know yet, but I hope to meet you. Thanks so much for your time. John, I don't know if you've got anything else for Ken, but this has been an immense pleasure. You're an awesome guy, and thanks for carrying the torch for your father. Appreciate that.
No, thanks for having me. Yeah. What part of California? I mean to catch up. What part?
Oh, Southern California. I live in Orange County.
Okay. Well, I work for Southwest actually, and I'm out there a lot of times. I actually have a friend that works for the Chargers, so
Okay. Let's connect.
Yeah, whenever I'm out there, I definitely look you up.
Yeah, let's connect. John, anything else for Ken before we bounce out of here?
So just so Ken knows, right now we are up to $330 of total donation money. Again, all proceeds will be donated to Ken's foundation, the Ken Anderson Alliance, and the Anthony Munoz Foundation. Our most recent donations were from $10 from Evan Hill and $10 from the wife of the Iceman himself, Jennifer Trenenpool. So thank you guys for donating to the fund. And again, 3 great foundations and charities, including Ken Riley's. And thank you so much, Ken, for coming on to plug it and promote it.
Thanks for having me. That's awesome. Thanks to the fans, man. That is awesome. And I appreciate you guys, doing it, putting this all together.
Yep, no problem. We're gonna get more for you. I promise. We're gonna hound these people to get more.
I appreciate that.
We're gonna do it. Thanks for your time. We'd love to have you back on again sometime in the near future too. Maybe during the season, talk about the Bengals. But thanks again for everything.
All right, thanks for having me, guys. Y'all take care.
All right, take it easy. That was Ken Riley II. Really, that's my first time chatting with him. That was a pleasure. That dude, I want to hang out with that guy. That guy has got a real awesome demeanor about himself, and I hope he does hit me up when he's in California. That was a lot of fun, man. That was a lot of fun.
We've never had a bad Ken come on the show. We're undefeated with Ken guests.
That is true. That is true. The Kens reign supreme, and just really, really cool how he is taking up the mantle for his father. I'm sure it's still difficult for him emotionally to talk about his father in the past tense and whatnot, but very, very cool. And what his father was able to do on the football field, off the football field, all of that. I kind of liken him a little bit to the Bengals version of, remember the old Dos Equis, most interesting man in the world? Ken Riley's kind of that, kind of like Dhani Jones in the same way. They kind of did a lot of different things, the Rhodes Scholar, Ring of Honor. I mean, it's just really, really cool. Switched positions, all that. Very, very cool. And we were privileged enough to speak to Ken Riley II. Hopefully it's not the last time, and we can get him on again soon, John. That was fun. We've got a little bit more on tap. It's been we're an hour and a half in, but we had 2 amazing interviews. We're hoping to connect with Anthony Munoz, the other third player in the Ring of Honor. If not tonight, then perhaps in the next couple of days. We're working on connecting with him, but been an awesome, awesome night. We are in need of other donations, though, folks. We want to make this a very sizable impact on these 3 charities. We are very appreciative of the donations that we have received so far, but if you are listening to the show after the fact, if you are watching the show after the fact, and maybe you didn't get the link, you can find it in the Cincy Jungle post where you usually find our podcast promoted on the page. It's on John's Twitter account. It's on the Bengals OBI Twitter account. I think it's on my Twitter account. So if you follow any of those, and then if you want to go back and look at the live chats there, they're all there for you. And then, of course, those of you who are tuning in live, we've put that in there a couple of different times. We'll continue to do so, but we want these people to say, wow, what was done tonight, this week, this weekend, all of that is very cool and is impactful. But we appreciate what you've done so far. We've got prizes that we will be giving out to donors. So we will be in touch with those of you who have donated. By the way, if you have donated and you did not submit any kind of personal contact information, please get in touch with us to do that and send proof of your, I mean, we can see who's on GoFundMe, but please send us proof so we can get you prizes should you win some of this stuff. We want to send this stuff out to you. So if we do not have contact information from you and you donated, please send that our way. And of course, you can get this show on YouTube. Go subscribe to our channel. Turn on notifications so you know when we go live, you know when new content's available. Go check that out. And then get the show on your favorite audio streamer, whether that's iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Megaphone, iHeartRadio, Spotify, any of that stuff. We're all there. Whew. John,
Not bad.
Thank you. Where do we go next, my friend? We were talking a little bit of training camp acquisitions. I think there was a little more to get to. Then we'll do a little positional preview and then maybe get out of here so we give the folks a little bit of everything. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, let's dive into it.
Okay. Today, let's just kind of go through some sights and sounds today. Jamar Chase was putting on a show by a lot of indications. James Rapine of All Bengals in the Locked On Bengals podcast has some media out there. Ben Baby saying that Joe Burrow was a perfect I can't remember if it was 7-4-7 or 7-on-7 drills. Regardless, he hit Jamar Chase in, on this sideline highlight grab. So the offense is clicking, man. And I think we knew that was going to be the case, and they would probably be ahead of the game in terms of them versus defense. But they seem to be early on already showing off a bit.
Yeah, let's just right now, let's tally off the classic training camp trope headlines based off of like the first week or two of training camp. So obviously the first couple practices, it's in shorts, it's in shirts, there's no pads, there's no contact. The offense looks great. The receivers are nice. They're talented. They're making flashy catches. The quarterbacks are accurate. It's all fun games. It's all cotton candy and rainbows. Then the pads come on, and all of a sudden, oh my God, the defensive line is eating. Does this offensive line have issues? This defensive line is going to get 50 sacks this year. So right now, we're on phase one of the offense, and the passing game looks great. But with that said, I do remember back in 2011, and even I think some former players now can attest to this. Like AJ Green just walked onto the field and you knew that he was just that guy. And he was kind of on the older side for a rookie. I think he was like 23 when he was a rookie. I think he turned 23 on the first day of training camp or something like that. But he was just locked in. He looked the part of like a 5-10-year vet. He knew where to be in his spots. He knew where to be in his routes. And he didn't drop a single pass. He became that immediate alpha number one. And I think Jamar Chase is on that path right now. Like the guy just, he gets it in a way that I don't think a lot of people expected. I know that Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow have both said this about the underrated aspect of his game. He is so much smarter than people realize from a football IQ standpoint. Like the guy, he dives into the playbook. He's just knowledgeable about what he needs to do. There's never going to be a point where Joe needs to tell him where to be, what the play is, and what his route needs to be. Like he knows where to get to his spots. And the athletic progression that he's taken from 2019 all the way to 2 years later now, it's on display. And I don't know there's anyone in the Cincinnati secondary, including Jesse Bates, that can stop him in these practices.
They all look really, really good. We've gushed about T. Higgins a lot. Tyler Boyd looking good. Joe Burrow looking good. And, it's about health at this point for that group. And it's about just getting a little bit more snaps together based on no preseason last year and Joe Burrow being injured late last year. So, but to your point, one thing I did note, our buddy Bengals Sans, Mike, I saw something on his Twitter account talking about maybe some needed work to be done by Chase in terms of route running. I don't know if, and of course he was going back to some things in college. I don't know if that is still kind of something that is a work in progress, but as of now, it appears that from what I can tell, from what I hear, that Chase is just letting the athleticism and raw ability take over regardless of what the route running is or isn't at this point in time. He's making outstanding catches. There was a tweet deleted by the Bengals media yesterday, a one-hander that he made down the sideline. More great highlight catches. And John, this is becoming very exciting. If you weren't excited about the pick, then you better start being excited about it now.
Well, why did they delete that tweet?
I don't know. It disappeared. At least it did for me. I don't know why they deleted it.
Well, if you happen to see it, I guess you're lucky because it was quite spectacular. But I mean, I feel like we talked about this with Burrow, like his way of just attacking the game and his recovery. It's infectious and it's contagious, I guess. And other players resonate with that. I think there's a similar effect with Chase. Like this is a 21-year-old rookie just coming in and he's just assuming the role to be like the new AJ Green, the new number one receiver in this offense. And it's like other receivers are trying to step up and match that effectiveness and that intensity, I guess. And for all the talk we've had about Chase, there's been equal amounts of talk with T. Higgins and the way that he kind of redid his body and improved on his game. And apparently he was making some physical contested catches and the limited opportunities that there are physical contested catches in the first day of training camp. I think Auden Tate had like an impressive catch. He's accustomed to doing in training camp. So it's these receivers, like they're all working together, the same team and whatnot, but they're kind of battling to see like who, like whenever they get their time, whenever they get their reps, they're going to try to prove that this is one of the most talented receiving groups ever. And that guy next to me, he's not going to top me. I'm going to top him on this next rep. It's just a constant competition and battle of everyone kind of getting better. And that's the beauty of having strength in these position groups. Like, you know that not only if one guy goes down, the next guy is going to be able to pick up, but no matter how deep you go, you're going to have talent. You're going to have guys that you can rely on in these situations. So from Chase to Higgins to Tate, we didn't even mention Tyler Boyd. I'm assuming he was doing his work today as well. So the list kind of goes on with this position group of guys just excelling in these areas.
And I was, as I mentioned earlier, I was on a show with the Orange Arrow, his new fantasy football show that he's kicking off there, did kind of a mock draft, and we were talking about, the Bengals receivers, and I kind of said from a fantasy football perspective, there may be even a time where if you're battling injuries or it's late in the season, the waiver wire is low on your fantasy football league. I mean, there may be a time where you pick up an Auden Tate and he helps carry you in a given week. I mean, there are 4 or 5 receivers deep, and then they just added the Reese kid to their roster. So I mean, Riley Lees was just reactivated off the pup list. So they're adding more talent to that group. And I think quickly, we've had a long show, but I think quickly that is a good segue for our positional preview this week, because we're talking all kinds of different, wide receivers, different players, how they fit in here. But I think wide receivers is where we should go this week, John. Look, I feel in some way, sometimes I feel like when we talk about this group, I'm like, are we overvaluing these guys? Are we overblowing what the production could be this year? But you look at the track record of a Tyler Boyd, a guy who has flirted with or surpassed 1,000 yards really in the last 3 or 4 seasons, right? You look at T. Higgins, basically would have had probably a 1,000-yard receiving year last year if he didn't get hurt in that final game. And then Chase looks every bit of the part of a superstar in the making. And those are just the top 3 guys here. So I'll pull up the roster here, but kind of a mile-high view a little bit of the position group. First impressions.
Like, people have started to rank like receiving groups in the NFL. I know Zim Hude was kind of spearheading that debate as to why this unit deserves to be top 5, but just raw talent, man. Like there are no more than like 3 or 4 teams with a better starting trio. Like, I know that there are some teams with maybe a better top 2 combination, like the Buccaneers come to mind with Evans and Godwin, but in terms of just for a team that starts 3 receivers, just the 2 outside in the slot, like there are no more than like 3 or 4 teams that can compete with this team in terms of just raw overall talent and already proven production. Because if Higgins stays healthy and plays the entire year, he eclipses 1,000 yards. Tyler Boyd, if not the best slot receiver in the game, is definitely the most underrated slot receiver in the game. And there's no reason to doubt that Jamar Chase is every bit as good as we believe that he is. There, in terms of just youth and overall ability, you would take this group over 95% of the others. And then you look at the rest of the position, the rest of the depth, it's not great, but no team is 10, 11 receivers deep. In terms of just the receivers that they're going to keep, I think Auden Tate is absolutely perfect as your 4th receiver. Mike Thomas is just fine as your 5th or 6th. And then you have a guy like Trent Taylor to potentially round it out. That's going to be really the thing to watch this preseason. Like, how many opportunities are the Trent Taylors, the Mike Thomases, the Stanley Morgans, Scotty Washingtons, how much are they going to get? Because some of these guys haven't played in a preseason at all, or haven't played in a preseason in now a year. So their opportunities were limited over the last year or so. But how is this position group going to round under these star talented trios? Because in the regular season, they're not going to get that many opportunities. You have to think that, in terms of just wide receiver targets, Chase, Boyd, and Higgins, they're going to get 90, 85% of them. And then the rest is going to Tate and maybe one or two others. But like, in terms of how this position group is going to fill out, is going to be what training camp and the preseason is about. Because it seems like Tate is guaranteed a spot as a reserve. Trent Taylor likely makes it just because he's a punt returner and like he was singled out by Darren Simmons. And then it really comes down to who's going to be that sixth guy who's mainly like a special teamer. So it could be coming down to either Stanley Morgan, Mike Thomas, or maybe Scotty Washington proves enough as a receiver to make it.
Scotty Washington's the guy that I was really interested in last year as an undrafted player. He's got good size and good speed, but seems to not have clicked enough for him to hang on to a spot. But I mean, you could see I was fiddling around with the screen, just the amount of players, depth, and talent that they have at this position group. I'm trying to fill it so everybody can kind of see it if you're watching the video feed here. But one guy that isn't talked about a lot, because we bring in Auden Tate and then we talk about the top three guys a lot, but Mike Thomas. I know you mentioned his name a little bit, but Mike Thomas is a guy that Zach Taylor likes. He was a Rams player. He's familiar with the system, and Zach Taylor trusts him. He had a couple of nice moments last year, a couple of other moments where you go, oh boy. But, he's a guy that probably will be quietly in the mix for things, and maybe even for playing time like he was last year. So Mike Thomas is a guy that you got to kind of look out for. And then, the whole scrum for special teams, who's going to make it there. And then, of course, preseason heroes. This is always the position group, John, where a player, two players, whatever, that are undrafted guys off the street, knock around guys, they come in and they become the preseason hero. I assume, because of history, that's probably going to happen again. I would not be surprised if Trent Taylor is a guy that ends up kind of raising some eyebrows. He's had some good applause or praise from former players that he has played with. I think Richard Sherman was one of them that was really high on him. But there's a lot of tough decisions to be made here.
And I think one of the toughest ones, because Mike Thomas, he was playing legit receiver snaps last year, which is not ideal, especially early in the season when he was. But, if you need a guy to come in every now and then and give you 15 routes a game, I think he's fine with that. Me and Joe Goodberry, we were big fans of him coming out of college back in 2016 because he was making these spectacular catches down in the Southern Miss, and he was testing pretty well and he was productive, and there was no reason why he couldn't eventually carve out a role for himself. And I think he's done exactly that 5 or 6 years into his career. The biggest question, though, because we talked about this guy ever since he signed as a college free agent, and what his role is going to be, Puka Williams. I don't remember if we talked about running backs just yet, but again, the guy is my size. He's 5'9", 170, 175 pounds. There are not a lot of running backs in the NFL who can make it at that size, but that is the size of a guy who can potentially compete and contribute as a gadget slot receiver type player. How much does Puka Williams have to do? How much does he have to impress to actually make this roster? Do they keep 7, including Puka? Do they list him as a running back so they only technically keep 6? I think that him and how many reps and opportunities he gets in preseason could potentially impact the dynamic of this position group as a whole. I think someone in the comment section said that Puka is listed as a receiver on the team's website. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think he's still listed as a running back here, but we haven't really seen what he's going to be doing with this offense in training camp yet. There's still plenty of ways to go before we kind of get an idea of that, but just what he does as a flex all-purpose type player. Obviously he might have to make an impact on special teams and as a return man, but I think in terms of just building the roster in general and just having the most impactful guys be your active 46, Puka could change how this position group is constructed and really how the entire offense in terms of running backs and receivers, how many they keep. He could be the X factor with that.
He's listed as a running back. I think the others are listed as a halfback. I'll have to double check on that there, but he is listed as a running back. That is a fantastic point that you bring up, though, about Puka Williams and Chris Evans. I mean, these are guys that they're going to use. They've talked about using these guys in kind of these hybrid roles, the Antonio Gibson type of roles where, yeah, you'll probably get some looks as a running back, maybe in kick returns. I think Puka Williams, they were intrigued by that in the spring. And then, of course, a wide receiver is a slot guy. It's interesting to me that in a way, they moved on from Gio. They just probably wanted to shave some contract numbers and then, of course, maybe get a little younger there. But they're going to do – theoretically, they're going to do some of the things that you would have thought would have been utilized more with Gio in terms of putting these guys in the slot, maybe even splitting them out wide. But these running backs that they brought in this year in the late rounds of the draft and or undrafted, Chris Evans and Puka Williams, they may play into that hybrid type of role and get looks as wide receivers more often than we think.
And I don't want to rain on the Puka hype train because I know he's already a fan favorite for what he did in college and what his potential is. But if he is to say get 5 to 10 snaps a game when the regular season happens and he gets those minimal opportunities, he needs a perfect preseason. There's no way a guy who came in undrafted and is at the bottom of the depth chart, there's no way that he can miss his spots or not be in the right place or make silly drops and expect to be a contributor in the regular season. Because again, the depth of this position group at both receiver and running back, it's monumental. And there's not enough room for Puka Williams to make the team. He has to prove he is the weapon that he is. This team, the media in itself have talked about how much more explosive this team is. And I think Puka, the addition of him, can make this team even more explosive than they even are on paper. It adds that extra dimension that we haven't really seen since really Andrew Hawkins, I guess, is the closest natural comparison I could think of. And Hawkins didn't get a ton of looks in the regular season, but when he touched the ball, he made things happen. He was a difference maker in his own right, and then he went on to be somewhat of that with the Cleveland Browns. So there is a chance for Puka to be that, but it has to come first on special teams. It has to come with him not making mistakes and just making the most of his opportunities.
The Bengals will have some tough decisions to make here, as we said, John. I think we're probably looking at 6 wide receivers, and then maybe they go heavy at a quote-unquote running back or halfback in the form of an Evans and or a Puka Williams. They may try and, maximize roster spots the best they can there. But, are you seeing 6? Are you seeing 7? You had roster predictions, an early roster prediction that came out, I believe. So I would like to share that as well. And I will do that. But your thoughts on the wide receiver position, how many they will and or should keep going into this season?
So I guess we'll mention them again. Say Puka makes the team as a running back. That's 4 running backs. And with that case, I think 6 is the number of receivers. I think there is a chance that it could be 7 when you keep both Mike Thomas and Stanley Morgan. I believe that those guys are probably 6 and 7 respectively, with maybe Trent Taylor acting as the 5th guy just because he gets the lock, I guess, for being a punt returner. But I think 6 or 7 is probably the number, with probably leaning more towards 6. It's just you're looking at, you have to look at other positions too. You're looking at least probably 10 offensive linemen, 10 defensive linemen. You're going to have to go short at quarterback and maybe even running back. Having depth at receiver is great, but when you have these guys, when you have Chase, Boyd, and Higgins, you're not taking them off the field that much, right? You don't want to make your offense worse. You want to give them some rest from time to time, but there's not going to be a ton of rotation at this position, not like last year, right? Because Higgins didn't start the season as a starter. He kind of rotated in when John Ross was not really performing well, and then he overtook Ross as a starter as the season went on. But now, these guys are entrenched. Really, the question with them is, how does this offense act in terms of divvying out roles for these guys? How interchangeable are they from an alignment standpoint? Is Chase always going to be at the X on the line of scrimmage? Is Higgins always going to be the flanker? Or are they rotating out from different sides of the formation? How often does Boyd go out of the slot? Maybe you put in Chase a little bit more. You're not taking those guys off the field. You're playing 11 personnel 80, 85% of the time. And you're not really going to see a ton of Auden Tate and Taylor and Mike Thomas anyways, those guys who we think are going to make the roster right now. So it like from a talent perspective, yeah, like Stanley Morgan or Scotty Washington or even Trent Irwin, who's been with the team now for 2 years, yeah, they could be talented enough to round up the position group, but I don't think there's that big of a need to keep 7 when you're really confident in your 3 guys if they stay healthy.
Yeah, and you've got here in your roster projection training camp edition on CincyJungle.com, you've got them keeping 4 running backs, Mixon, Pirine, Evans, and Puka. So you have Travion Williams out of the picture there, and then they go tiny bit lighter with 6 wide receivers: Chase Higgins, Boyd Tate, Taylor, Mike Thomas. You don't have Stanley Morgan in there, and I assume that is because of what we've just been discussing the past few minutes with Evans and Puka Williams.
Right. So again, 7 is a number that we've seen in the past, but every year is different, right? And no one ever really gets the roster projection 100% accurate. That's a very rare thing to do, especially a month out into the season. Injuries impact that. Just people performing well in training camp and preseason, that impacts that. So there's a lot of stuff that we don't know, but I think we have a pretty good idea about who has a good chance of making it. And right now, it seems like 6 is right in that sweet spot.
Well, again, it's probably like the 7th time I've said it so far, but tough decisions to be made here by the Cincinnati Bengals with this group. And they do, like other positions, they do appear to be better equipped to handle injuries, at least those in the summer at this position, than they maybe have been and or ineffectiveness. They've got a pretty full stable, and they've got some flexibility with guys at the running back position. So I'm kind of on par with you there in terms of the 4 running backs, and 2 of those being those multi-versatile running backs in Puka Williams and Chris Evans, and then maybe going a little lighter at wide receiver and keeping a lot of the names that we assume are going to be there. Trent Taylor obviously kind of being the new face there as a special teams guy. So anything else to wrap a bow on the positional preview before we start heading out of here on this long show?
It would be special to see the top 3 guys all eclipse 1,000 yards, but if it doesn't happen, I think there's more than enough potential for this offense to still be successful. I really question about what expectations should be with this group, at least in year 1 with Chase's rookie and Higgins in his 2nd year. But I mean, we talked about, how they're going to rack up in terms of production, in terms of who's going to be on top of who. But I think we're really going to find out a lot about who they are in the preseason, even with Brandon Allen at quarterback. I think for the most part, we'll see the roles kind of laid out for what they are in the drives that they're in. And again, it's going to be fun to see guys like Morgan, Irwin, Washington compete for reps in preseason again. Like, that's something that we missed last year, and it's something that I kind of miss watching. Like the preseason isn't that exciting from like an overall quality of football perspective, but it is nice to see those bottom of the roster guys compete and really make a statement for themselves. Who can be this year's Damian Willis, I guess, if you will. We're really focused in and enamored with 3 1,000-yard wide receivers and 10 touchdowns plus a piece and all of that. You have to remember C.J. Uzomah's back. Drew Sample is still going to be part of this offense. We don't know about Thad Moss and if he makes the team, and the rapport that's already built there with Joe Burrow, the 2 receiving running backs, Joe Mixon being a part of the passing game. There's going to be a lot of targets to be spread around beyond those 3 guys. Those 3 guys will be the focal point, no doubt about it, and they will get a lot of production, statistics, etc. But there are a lot of other factors involved in this, and it's a good problem to have. Spread the ball around. That part of the problem that the Bengals have had in their offense, aside from offensive line issues, has been a bit of predictability. And by the way, that is tied to offensive line issues being a little too predictable. And now that they've got a lot of different weapons, a lot of young weapons, that predictability factor goes out the window. John, before we get out of here, I do, even though he didn't make the appearance tonight, we're still going to hopefully get him on the show in the near future. Did want to highlight the Munoz Foundation. They do a number of different things in the greater Cincinnati area, providing scholarships and youth leadership seminars and all kinds of really cool different things. I'm not doing it justice as Mr. Munoz would, but they are attempting to impact the youth of the greater Cincinnati area. They do a lot of great work. And of course, there's no
coincidence. I'd have to look if Ken Riley won the award as well, but Munoz was a Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner when in his time in the NFL. I don't think it was called the Walter Payton Man of the Year award when Ken Anderson won it, but he was the NFL Man of the Year, as he mentioned earlier. These are guys who are excellent on the football field and are doing excellent things off the field. And your donations will also help the Munoz Foundation that you sent to us tonight, that you continue to send to us throughout the week if you weren't able to join us live. But it's one of the 3 foundations that we're supporting.
Just in terms of obviously Munoz, Riley, and Anderson, they're 3 of the greatest Bengals of all time. But in terms of just being overall ambassadors for the organization and the community, there's probably not 3 better former players that you can possibly think of. And I'd like to think that was part of why the season ticket holders voted in Riley and Anderson, along with the obvious Hall of Fame discussion. And unfortunately, Riley's unfortunate passing last year. But in terms of just representing the community of Cincinnati and just their life after their time playing with the team, I think that is an aspect that needs to be highlighted as the future of the Ring of Honor unfolds. It's not just how these guys did when they played, but how they composed and represented themselves and really just being a member of the Cincinnati community. Like Munoz, he's a Southern California guy, like Anthony knows. He went to USC, but his foundation benefits the greater Cincinnati area and those children struggling with mental and physical issues and really supports them in their future. So, for him, obviously, Munoz does work with the Bengals and the preseason broadcasting duties. He's all over, local commercials as well. He's well known in the community, but for him to really base his foundation in the city of Cincinnati, it means a lot for a native Cincinnatian like myself. And obviously with Ken Anderson, I live in Norwood, which is a suburb of Cincinnati, and his alliance is actually just 5 minutes up the road in Silverton. I actually passed it a couple weeks ago to get a look at the Just Brew coffee shop and the headquarters of the Ken Anderson Alliance. So it has a special place in terms of, where I grew up, where my dad grew up. He grew up just down the street from that as well, and where I live now. So very personal connections to some of these things. And again, just really what it means to, represent the city of Cincinnati and really represent themselves as former Bengals.
It's been a pleasure. I think we've had maybe a couple of draft episodes that have gone this long. Definitely not a true podcast episode that have gone this long, but this has been an absolute pleasure. Not only chatting football with you, John, but having our guests that we had on. We were able to kind of cover a lot of different fields. I now kind of am like, man, how do those guys do those 3 or 4 hour radio shows all the time? Like, oh man. But it's been a pleasure. This has been easily one of my favorite episodes that we have done based on the guests and what we talked about, the excitement around training camp, and the fact that we're trying to, get some money for these great causes and we're getting some responses from our listeners. So this has been cool, man. Yeah.
And just an update, we're still at $330 in terms of total donation. Again, 100% of those proceeds are going to go to the Anthony Munoz Foundation, the Ken Riley Foundation, and the Ken Anderson Alliance. I think we're going to keep the GoFundMe open for an undetermined amount of time just to see how close we can get to that unofficial goal of $2,021. But all I know is that at least tonight, you guys did not want to see me drink hot sauce. So I guess my throat thanks you, but honestly, I wanted to do it for the charity, but we'll see how close we can get in the near future.
Well, thanks for doing all kinds of different things to help set this up, John. It's been fun, and thanks to those who tuned in live. Thanks to all of you who donated. Our thanks to Ken Riley II and Ken Anderson for joining us on the program. It's been a lot of fun, and we hope to have Anthony Munoz on pretty soon here. We'll keep working on that. We're going to do some listener questions live if our vocal cords allow us later this week. So keep it to that. Queue up some questions. Feel like it's a good time to do that. Even with the long episode, feel like it's a good time to do that with training camp kicking off. John, anything else before we hop on out of here, my friend?
No, this was, again, just echoing those sentiments. A lot of fun to do. A lot of fun. I don't think we've ever done 2 interviews in one show, so that was a new thing for me personally. But yeah, my jaw hurts a little bit. I don't know about you, but I felt it when we were talking to Ken II. I feel like my jaw is kind of locked into place. But this was a lot of fun and definitely something new. And again, hopefully we can get some more donations in the coming days.
Yeah. Thanks everybody. Appreciate it. And again, thanks to the Kens. Congratulations to all of the members of the Bengals 2021 inaugural Ring of Honor class. We'll be back with some listener questions and a lot of other coverage on this show on CincyJungle.com. Go check out Symbol, SIMBULL.app/OBI. And while you're at it, go subscribe to all of our channels, not only for our podcast on the audio side. You can also get Orange is the New Black. Great interview by Zim and Ace with Dr. David Chow this week, who's also known as the Football Doc. Go check that out. Very insightful. And, of course, all the Chalk Talk episodes. For John Sheeran, I'm Anthony Cosenza. This has been Training Camp Kickoff, Charity Fest on the Orange and Black Insider. Have a great rest of your week, and we will be talking to you soon. Thanks, everybody.